Hey there, welcome back to another exciting episode of Karishma Connect. Here I am with a very interesting lineup this month. I've got one architect, one designer, a property consultant, a travel consultant, and also an actor. Of course, there's World Design Day happening on 27th of April, and we've got two people, two guests speaking to us about design, architecture, and interiors and how it all blends together to create a wonderful space for people. One such person is architect Apoorva Shroff, founder and principal designer at Lyth Design, who's recently designed the Dancing Divas house itself, which is Madhuri Dixit. And she talks to me about what goes into building a space for celebrities or just any other personality as well. How does she add a personal touch to it? What is the science behind bamboo and how can it contribute to effective interior design? And she also tells me more about what budding architecture students need to keep in mind when entering this field. So go check out the episode. Until the next one, stay tuned. Many more coming up. I'll be back. Tada. Thank you so much, Apoorva, for joining me on this episode of Karishma Connect. It's a pleasure to have you. I can't wait to know more about your experience, which particularly interested me a lot, and I look forward to sharing it with the audience.
Thanks for having me on your channel, and I can't wait to do this with you.
Most welcome. Now, the first question I begin with on any interview, Apurva, is tell me about your journey so far because it's a journey you own and say it best. So please go ahead.
So I think my journey with architecture, because there have been many journeys, so let me just stick to architecture. When I was much younger, my mother once, came back home from work. She used to work at a bank, and she said, we have these builders whose accounts I manage, and they send their architects all around the world to look at buildings, come back here, build it for them. And the best part is they get to keep the penthouses of the buildings that they built. And that was it. The greed for a penthouse is what made me an architect today. And yeah, I did all the right things. When you have a target set, then you go for it. So I went to a good school, then I worked with great firms. I did pursued my graduate degree from UCLA, then I worked in New York. I came back and started working with friends of mine, and it was, I think what helped was that absolute clear vision that I wanted to be an architect and I wanted to be really good at, I mean, thankfully I am. So that definitely helped. And it's just that clear path ahead of me is what has brought me to where I am today.
But you did mention you were into a lot of other things as well. Tell me something about that.
So I loved to dance. As again growing up, there was this show that I saw by Shamak Dabar when I was very young, and I used to learn ballet, so I had a strong dance background, and I started dancing with Shamak, and almost instantly he said, you belong with my company, and will you dance professionally? And I came from a very conservative background. So, there was no way my father was going to let me wear all those, transparent leotards and tights and perform. And it was very different background growing up. And I remember, like, just having to hitch rides to go for rehearsals. It was just insane. And then, as much as I enjoyed it, started architecture school. And you don't even think that dance could be a profession that you could pursue then, And very soon I had to pick between architecture and dance. And so it was architecture. And I really wonder if I had the guts or if, I had a little more encouragement towards a fluid profession like that, where would I be today?
But did you end up seeing any similarities between the two? Did one influence the other at any point?
100%. I think with it's like I said, they're both extremely creative. They are both extremely experimental, both extremely expressive. So yes, there are many similarities to it. But I feel in our country, while today there is so much more reception to pursuing a profession in dance. Maybe a few years ago, it was not. as welcoming.
I'm going to come back to architecture, of course. That's what you do. Tell me, what do you think from your experience is required to be a successful architect of tomorrow?
I think let me go back to passion. No matter what you do, be it architecture, be it dance, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. And that's the only way you can stay committed to whatever you're doing and excel at what you're doing. That's the number one rule, to be completely committed and absolutely enjoy what you are doing. Yeah, so like I said, clarity of vision. Second is, I think you need to constantly, again, like with any profession, you got to keep evolving, you got to keep learning, you got to keep going back to the desk. And, with medical, with law, I think it's easier. People just keep going back to the academics. But with architecture, you just have to, I think, keep at it, work harder, expose yourself to different methods of construction. It's very difficult when you are practicing because you tend to get caught up in what you're doing and you never go back to the school unless you're teaching. That definitely helps. If you do a part-time teaching position, it will. I tried that, and that really really helped revive your excitement towards architecture again, spark your curiosity, learn new softwares, learn the way young minds think. That's important for any practice today, any actually architect. I would advise to keep finding inspiration. That's what's going to make you an architect for tomorrow. And young minds are a special place. You the kind of inspiration that you find with the younger minds, I think, will take you to be the architect of tomorrow.
Well put. Tell me, what's your process when it comes to tapping into any space? How do you navigate that? What have you figured out over the years?
So I feel with any space that I inherit to design, right? For one, you have to study the space for what it is, how you've inherited it, what the shortcomings are, what the advantages are. You need to go out there and definitely, rule number one is to go out there and study the space for exactly what I said, its shortcomings and its whatever highlights. And after that, it's very important to get a brief. What does the client want? I mean, are you designing a home? Are you designing a hospital? They're all very different things, right? So the brief from the client is a very very important part. And then you start playing to your skills. So for example, if there's less light, how do you bring in more of it? What can you take down? How do you rearrange it? How do you make it optimized? How do you then beautify it? But I think the first step in any project would be to first study its pros and cons.
For the unversed in the field, tell me why, how is a hospital different, or any space? I'm just taking this because you mentioned. How is a hospital different from a home? In an architect's mind, how are you approaching it?
I think the first most important part of any design is the function of it. So when it comes to, I think, hospital versus home, while the hospital needs to be as homely as possible, it also needs to function as a hospital. I can't have three different couches, sitting next to each other so the doctor can't go through, or a stretcher bed can't go through, right? So they're very 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 different. And while everybody wants to feel homely and welcome in a hospital, I think the first thing that will kill the vibe is the white light in a hospital versus the soft lighting in a home, right? So yeah, it's every space that you design comes from the need for it. And that's what makes each space unique.
And then tell me, you have designed quite a few celebrity homes, is what I've heard. Tell me, How have you navigated that? What's different there? Because these are personalities who have so much history behind them, so much passion behind them. And this I say just from a viewer perspective, but I'm sure when you engage with them, there are a whole lot of different ideas that kind of thrive in their minds and influence their choices. How have you navigated that, and what has that inspiration sort of taught you about your own journey and about your own career and what you do?
I treat every client, whether they are a friend or a celebrity, the same. You sit down, you hear them out, you understand what they need, and then each person comes with their own unique personality, and you got to start from there. After the brief, your next step is to understand your client's personality. And many a times, I mean, doesn't necessarily have to be a celebrity. Husband and wife, they're very different. There is I had a project once where the husband wanted white and the wife wanted gold. And you got to find a way to blend the two, make it work, because that's your job. Hear them out. And sometimes, when you're listening to them, you can actually talk them through what is not reasonable and explain the situation or the need, or help them understand what exactly they are liking in an image, versus when they all come with to you with images and they say, okay, I want this, and then you got to decipher that code and say, okay, explain, what is it that you like? What if I take this and put it with that? Would that still work for you? And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a celebrity, right? So but since you mentioned that, when it came to Madhuri and Ram, they were both very, very, very different, like any married couple. And while Ram is was more vocal about what he wanted, Madhuri was a lot quieter. And so you got to spend that much more time with her to make sure that she's also getting what she wants. And they both came with a lot of lovely aspects of their personality, as well as what they already owned. So that's also an important part, where you study what they already have, be it art, be it, pieces that are special to them. Like when it came to her, there were all her awards. So every client comes with something that is unique to them, and you need to make time to understand what that is and how they would like it integrated into their new home.
You shared dance in common.
That is true. That is true. You have no idea what meeting Madhuri Dixit was like for me, and it would be for anybody else.
You're also somebody who emphasizes on sustainability in design, right? Why do you think that is important?
So that's a question that has consumed the world today, with everybody realizing that our planet is crashing if we don't do anything about it. And just as a responsible citizen, a responsible architect, sustainability was something that I knew nothing about. Of course, most people are like that. Everybody is, yes, you got to be sustainable, but not too many of us are that faced with calamity at this point in our lives that we're desperate enough to seriously look at it. But what happened to me was 2 years ago, not two, I think a year ago, I went for again, one of my self discovery, getting back to learning, took me to a camp in Bali that taught about bamboo. And that really transformed my life. I started enjoying that. I absolutely enjoyed that course, first of all. And I absolutely had my mind opened up when it came to the use of bamboo and how beautiful the architecture that can come out of it resulted in. And guess what, it was a sustainable material that I was working with. So when I came back, I definitely wanted to integrate more of bamboo in my work, and it was just convenient that it was sustainable. And so it's been a great mix for me. So now when I design, I just by default think bamboo. Where can I incorporate it? So I'm not one of those people that has moved to only bamboo architecture, but I would love to keep integrating more and more of bamboo in terms of canopies or different little highlight features into my regular building that will help integrate the two together.
Can you share something that particularly surprised you or that you have kind of figured out about the use of bamboo over the years, which people may or may not know about?
You get the most amazing looking structures. It's you actually when you think bamboo, you think crude, you think basic, you think restricted, but that's not true at all. The kind of structures that are out there today with bamboo that look so stunning and would almost be impossible to achieve with concrete. It's almost the polar opposite of working with concrete. And the spans may not be as huge, but you can definitely achieve large spans if that is the goal of your project. And it has completely surprised me just in terms of aesthetics and just in terms of functionality.
And what do you think makes a good design? What are the three things that you think, the three ingredients to a good design, according to you?
I think being responsible. You don't design for the sake of design. There has to be a reason for your building to exist. There has to be a reason why the design has been thought of the way it has. I mean, that's one of the number one reasons why a good. That's probably the number one reason of a good building, why it exists, and how you solved for it. I would think again, its impact on the environment would have to be number two, where you've worked. I mean, I don't say you have to restrict yourself to made in India, but if you are going to look at local materials before you start importing, that I think would be a conscious effort towards sustainability. And I think that's really important. And finally, I think it comes down to I don't want to say aesthetics because people generally have very different views. But if the user of the building actually feels like coming back to the space, then you've definitely done justice to it. If you built something and it's built responsibly, it's built and it completely hits the target, the desirability of the client, and everything else is checked off. But if people don't want to come and sit down there and enjoy the building, then you've clearly, you know, failed.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to your experience with Madhuri just to ask you a question for aspiring architects and aspiring designers. Now, when you're navigating the field, of course, you're going through different challenges and opportunities. For any budding designer or anybody, like it's always a dream, right? You would like to kind of reach a particular level. You would like to attract a particular level of clients, and people often aspire to reach there. What do you have to say to those aspirants? What can they keep in mind to make sure that they are scaling the right way?
I think clarity of thought, like I said before, I mean, what is it that you want out of what you're doing, right? The minute you have clarity of thought, it gives you direction to catapult in the right uh, into the right place. What you need to definitely, once you have clarity of thought, is to have a plan of action. So you can't just have clarity of thought and do nothing about it, right? You have to be proactive. You have to make yourself available. You have to work bloody hard to create an identity for yourself so people know who you are. You have to do word of mouth is the biggest advantage that you have today. Even if you're starting out with one or two projects, if those two clients are happy and they go out there and tell 10 other people that they're happy, you're sorted. So there are so many people, midway through a project, like, the client has a fallout. I just feel that's such a negative for anybody, because it just maybe takes away, you wasted 1 year of your life, and you know that that client is going to go ahead and not say good things about you, so you've got to work extra hard. So if that means saying no to 10 other projects, you can finish this one project that is sucking your blood. Do it, because trust me that one person that's not satisfied will take those 10 potential clients down if their paths cross. So it's really important to have happy people on your resume. And yeah, that's it. Keep at it.
That's a beautiful note. Tell me, what's that one big thing in the industry that you're looking forward to developing over the years?
Kiran Nadar had a competition for architects to build a museum for her, and Sir David Adajay won it. So, while I'm all for Made in India, I can't wait to see what he comes up with, you know. And like, building a museum is probably a dream project for someone like me. And while you get a lot of these when you're doing your architecture school, you very few lucky ones actually get to build projects of this scale that allow you to express yourself at that level, right? And I would love to see what that turns out to be like.
I'm curious to know, and this is more of a me question. Does design differ? We are in the span, at least in the UAE. Even in India, I think it's a perpetual conversation when you have a rental versus an ownership property. Does design differ in that space as well?
So it definitely does, but today I find that a lot of people are willing to spend quite, you know, generously, even if it's a rental. So I think the basic difference is that you usually inherit the structure, and you have the civil work that is completed. And then in a rental, you're just mostly looking to decorate versus design. So you will then look at loose pieces of furniture or wallpaper, paint colors, curtain fabrics, things like an artwork and plants, and the all the little icing on the cake kind of features. But when it comes to starting from scratch or blank slate, you can actually then plan the house differently, or the office, depending on what the function is, where you can actually then spend time with the client and understand how large a bedroom they need, versus just having to make do with a size that has been predetermined for them. So that's the big difference. But in terms of, I think, general aesthetics, most people that are renting today also, will spend just as much. It's just that little bit of customization that, begins with the plan, which you lose out on.
And have you seen generational differences as well? Like, say, for example, a younger lot versus an older lot. Have you seen?
Yeah, I don't think the younger lot today are willing to buy at all. Everybody wants to rent. And I can understand, because it gives you a lot of flexibility, because you don't know where you are going to be in, the next few years of your life. And I think if you ask the entire finance world, they will all say go ahead and rent and don't buy. They're ridiculous in price. And it's just, I think, that old Indian mentality that says, you need that security, so buy, don't pay rent. But I think in today's day and age, most people would prefer to rent, at least at the start of their careers.
Absolutely. My last question to you, Apurva, is tell me about your best project so far.
So I had a bucket list opportunity a couple of years ago when my husband and I decided to build our holiday home, and it has still 3 years down the road still is my best project. And it was so challenging in so many ways, and it was also so rewarding in so many ways, because when you're your own client and there's nobody else to blame, it gets really hard, because all your and he kind of stayed out of the process, and that was absolutely great and generous of him. I don't know how many people are able to do that. He didn't ask me a single question, which is amazing. He just wanted a large house because we both have large families. So his requirements started and ended with that one sentence. And then everything else that went well or went down would all be on me. But it was an amazing journey for me, because I think it really helped me grow as an architect. I really didn't have that much experience when I started building it, and there were so many things I learned in the process: managing people, delegating to people, supervising, learning about materials, learning about sustainability, learning about building in a new environment. It just absolutely catapulted me again into another zone when it came to being an architect.
Thank you so much, Apoorva. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I really look forward to sharing this conversation with the audience.
Thanks, Karishma. Me too. I really had a good time this afternoon.